What would you do if standing up for what was right put you directly in the crosshairs of the most dangerous man in the city? But what if that dangerous man became the only person willing to protect you from an even darker threat? Naomi Williams checked the prescription queue on her computer screen for what felt like the 100th time that Tuesday evening at Riverside Pharmacy in Lower Manhattan. At 32, she had worked as a licensed pharmacist for 8 years, earning a reputation for being thorough, ethical, and uncompromising when it came to patient safety. Her natural hair was pulled back into a neat bun, professional but still distinctly herself. She wore her standard white pharmacist coat over a navy blue blouse and slacks, comfortable shoes that could handle the 12-hour shifts she regularly worked. The pharmacy was located in a neighborhood that straddled the line between working-class families and the territories controlled by various criminal organizations. Naomi had learned early in her career to be diplomatic, professional, and absolutely unwavering when it came to the law. She filled legitimate prescriptions without judgment, but she refused to participate in anything that compromised patient safety or violated federal regulations. Tonight had been particularly busy. The flu season was starting early, and Naomi had spent most of the day counseling elderly patients on their medications, helping parents understand dosing instructions for sick children, and managing the constant flow of insurance issues that made pharmacy work more administrative than clinical. Her colleague, Marcus, a pharmacy technician who had worked at Riverside for 15 years, was restocking shelves when the front door chimed. Naomi looked up to see 2 men entering. The first was young, maybe mid-20s, with the kind of nervous energy that immediately put Naomi on alert. He wore an expensive leather jacket and designer sneakers, but his eyes were unfocused, and his movements jerky. Signs Naomi recognized from years of watching people try to obtain controlled substances. The second man made Naomi's breath catch in her throat for an entirely different reason. He was probably in his early 40s, with dark hair silvered at the temples and olive skin that spoke of Mediterranean heritage. He wore a perfectly tailored charcoal suit that probably cost more than Naomi made in a month. His presence was commanding in a way that had nothing to do with height or volume. He simply radiated power and authority. When he moved, even the air seemed to shift around him. But it was his eyes that captured Naomi's attention. Dark brown, almost black, with an intensity that suggested he saw everything, understood everything, and forgot nothing. He surveyed the pharmacy with the careful assessment of someone who evaluated threats and opportunities in every situation. The younger man approached the counter while the older one remained near the entrance, his attention seemingly focused on his phone. But Naomi noticed he was actually watching everything happening in the pharmacy, with subtle but complete awareness. "Hi, I need to fill this prescription," the young man said, sliding a paper across the counter to Naomi. His hand was shaking slightly. Naomi picked up the prescription and immediately felt her professional alarm bells ringing. It was written for 120 tablets of oxycodone, 30 milligrams, a dangerously high dose and quantity. The prescriber's name was Dr. Andrew Carlson, someone Naomi had never heard of despite working in this neighborhood for years. "I will need to verify this with the prescribing doctor," Naomi said calmly, maintaining her professional tone. "Can I get your identification and insurance information?" The young man's nervousness increased visibly. "It is urgent. I was in a car accident last week and I am in a lot of pain. The doctor said to get this filled immediately." Naomi had heard variations of this story hundreds of times. "I understand you are in pain, but I still need to verify the prescription and get your information. It is standard procedure for controlled substances." The young man looked back at the older man near the entrance. Something passed between them, a silent communication that made Naomi even more wary. "Look," the young man said, his voice taking on a harder edge. "I do not have time for this. Just fill the prescription. I will pay cash." Red flag number 3. High-dose opioids, urgent timeline, cash payment, unwillingness to provide identification. Every element of a fraudulent prescription. "Sir, I cannot fill this prescription without verification," Naomi said firmly. "If you are a legitimate patient in pain, I am happy to help you once I have confirmed this is a valid prescription from a licensed physician. But I need to follow federal regulations." "Federal regulations," the young man repeated, his voice rising. "Do you know who you are dealing with? Do you have any idea what kind of trouble you are causing?" Marcus, who had been listening from the back, moved closer to the counter, ready to support Naomi if things escalated. They had a panic button under the register that would alert both the police and the store owner if pressed. "I am dealing with a patient who needs medication," Naomi said, her voice calm but unyielding, "and I am a pharmacist who takes my responsibility to public health seriously." I will not fill a prescription that raises red flags for fraud or abuse. If this is legitimate, the verification will only take a few minutes. You are making a big mistake, the young man said, his face flushing with anger and something that looked like fear. You have no idea who you are saying no to. I am saying no to anyone who presents a suspicious prescription, Naomi replied. That is my job. That is the law. And I am not going to compromise patient safety or federal regulations regardless of who is asking. The young man looked again at the older man, who had finished his phone call and was now watching the interaction with focused intensity. For a moment, Naomi thought the situation might escalate into something dangerous. She kept her hand near the panic button, ready to call for help. Then the older man spoke for the first time. His voice was deep, accented with Italian pronunciation, and carried an authority that made everyone in the pharmacy go still. Luca, we are leaving. Now. But, Dante. The young man started. Now, the older man repeated. The single word carried so much command that the young man immediately moved toward the door. Before leaving, the older man, Dante apparently, turned to look directly at Naomi. Their eyes met, and Naomi felt a shock of recognition, though she was certain she had never met this man before. His expression was unreadable, but something in his gaze suggested he was reevaluating something, making calculations that had nothing to do with the prescription. My apologies for the disturbance, he said simply. Then he was gone, the young man following behind him like a chastised child. Marcus let out a long breath he had been holding. Girl, do you know who that was? Naomi shook her head, still processing the encounter. The young guy tried to pass a fake prescription. It happens all the time. Not the young guy, the older man. That was Dante Moretti. The name meant nothing to Naomi for a moment. Then recognition clicked. Dante Moretti, the Dante Moretti, head of the Moretti crime family, one of the most powerful mafia bosses in New York, connected to everything from construction and waste management to more illegal enterprises that newspapers hinted at but could never prove. Oh, Naomi said quietly, her hand unconsciously moving to her throat. Oh no. Marcus looked genuinely worried. Naomi, you just refused a prescription from someone connected to Dante Moretti. Do you understand what that means? It means I did my job, Naomi said though. Her voice was not quite as steady as before. I cannot fill fraudulent prescriptions. Not for anyone. But this is not anyone. This is... I know who he is, Naomi interrupted. And it does not change anything. The prescription was fake. The DEA would have my license if I filled it. Doing the right thing does not change just because someone dangerous asks you to do the wrong thing. Marcus shook his head. You are either the bravest person I have ever met or the most foolish. Possibly both. As Naomi processed the prescription rejection in her computer system, documenting why it could not be filled, she tried not to think about what consequences her ethical stand might bring. She had always believed that principles meant nothing if you abandoned them when they became inconvenient or dangerous. But she had also never imagined those principles would bring her into conflict with organized crime. The rest of the evening passed without incident, but Naomi could not shake the feeling that she was being watched. Every time the pharmacy door opened, she looked up expecting to see Dante Moretti or someone else coming to retaliate for her refusal. But the customers were just regular neighborhood people picking up prescriptions, buying cold medicine, asking questions about vitamins. When her shift ended at 10 o'clock, Naomi walked to her car in the pharmacy's small parking lot with her keys held between her fingers like a weapon, her phone in her other hand ready to call 911 if necessary. The October air was cold and her breath formed small clouds as she hurried across the pavement. Her car, a 10-year-old Honda Civic that had seen better days, was parked under one of the few working streetlights. As she approached, she noticed a figure leaning against the vehicle next to hers, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a long dark coat. Dante Moretti straightened as she approached, his hands visible and empty, his posture non-threatening but alert. Miss Williams? I believe? Naomi stopped several feet away, keeping distance between them, her hand tightening on her phone. How do you know my name? Your name tag, Dante said simply, and a basic internet search. You are Naomi Williams, licensed pharmacist, graduate of Columbia University College of Pharmacy, currently working at Riverside Pharmacy for the past 5 years. You live in Brooklyn, drive a 2014 Honda Civic, and according to social media, you volunteer at a community clinic on weekends, teaching elderly patients about medication management. Naomi felt cold that had nothing to do with the October air. You researched me? I research everyone who interests me, Dante said. And you interest me very much. Miss Williams, if you are here to threaten me, Naomi started, her voice stronger than she felt. I am here to apologize, Dante interrupted. The prescription my associate tried to fill was fraudulent. You were absolutely correct to refuse it. Your commitment to your professional ethics, even under pressure, is admirable. Naomi stared at him, completely confused. You are apologizing? I am, Dante said. And I am also here to offer you my protection. Your protection? From what? From the people who forged that prescription and tried to use my name to intimidate you into filling it, Dante explained. The prescription was part of a larger pharmaceutical fraud operation. Pills are diverted from pharmacies, sold on the street for significant profit. The people running this operation have been using my name without permission, suggesting connections to my family that do not exist. So you are not. Naomi paused, unsure how to phrase the question. Involved in illegal pharmaceutical distribution? Dante finished. No. My business interests are varied, and not all of them would meet with legal approval. But drug trafficking is not something I participate in. The opioid epidemic has destroyed too many families, too many communities. It goes against my principles. Naomi almost laughed at that. The idea of a mafia boss talking about principles seemed absurd. But there was something in Dante's expression that suggested he was completely serious. Why would I need protection? Naomi asked. I just refused to fill a prescription. It is not the first time, and it will not be the last. Because the people who sent that prescription will not be happy that you refused, Dante said. Because they will try again, either at your pharmacy or at others. Because they may decide you are a liability who needs to be removed. And because I do not appreciate people using my family's name to conduct business I disapprove of. I can take care of myself, Naomi said, though her voice lacked conviction. She was scared, and they both knew it. I am sure you can, Dante said, but I am offering you additional security regardless. Not because you need it, though you might, but because you did the right thing when it would have been easier and safer to do the wrong thing. That kind of integrity is rare. It deserves protection. I do not want to owe you anything, Naomi said carefully. You will not owe me anything, Dante replied. Consider it a professional courtesy. You refuse to participate in something harmful. I appreciate that. I am simply ensuring that your ethical stand does not result in consequences you should not have to face. Naomi studied his face, trying to understand what was really happening. This man was supposedly one of the most dangerous criminals in New York. Yet here he was, speaking about ethics and protection, apologizing for a disruption he had not even directly caused. Why do you really care? Naomi asked bluntly. You do not know me. You have no reason to concern yourself with what happens to a random pharmacist. Something shifted in Dante's expression, a flicker of something that might have been respect or interest or both. I care because you stood your ground when most people would have caved. I care because you prioritized doing right over being safe. And I care because the people trying to run pills through your pharmacy are making enemies they should not be making. Helping you happens to align with other interests I have in shutting down their operation. So I am collateral benefit, not the actual goal, Naomi said. You are someone who deserves protection, Dante corrected. Whether that is the primary goal or a secondary benefit is irrelevant. The offer stands. Naomi wanted to refuse. Everything she had been taught, everything she believed about right and wrong suggested that accepting help from a mafia boss was crossing a line she should not cross. But she was also practical enough to recognize that she might actually be in danger. Pharmaceutical fraud operations involved serious money and serious criminals. People had been killed for less than refusing to fill one prescription. What would this protection look like? Naomi asked cautiously. Someone will be stationed near your pharmacy during your shifts, Dante said. Someone will follow you home each night to ensure you arrive safely. If anyone approaches you or threatens you, you will have a way to contact me immediately. Nothing intrusive, nothing that will disrupt your normal life. Just security in case it becomes necessary. For how long? Until the situation is resolved, Dante said. My people are already investigating the pharmaceutical fraud operation. Once we identify everyone involved and shut it down, the threat to you will be eliminated. And what do you get out of this? Naomi asked. Besides eliminating people who are using your name without permission? Dante smiled slightly. The satisfaction of knowing I helped someone who deserved help. Sometimes, that is enough. Naomi did not believe that for a second. but she also did not have better options. "I need to think about it." "Of course," Dante said. "Take the time you need." He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a business card. Simple, elegant, just a phone number embossed on. Expensive cardstock. "If you need anything, if you feel threatened, if anything unusual happens, call this number. Someone will answer immediately." Naomi took the card, her fingers brushing his briefly. Even that small contact sent a shock through her system. This man was dangerous. This man was probably guilty of crimes she did not even want to imagine. This man should terrify her. So why did she feel safer than she had all evening? "Good night, Miss Williams," Dante said. "Drive carefully." Then he was gone, disappearing into the shadows between buildings like he had never been there at all. Naomi sat in her car for several minutes, staring at the business card in her hand. She had just accepted contact information from a Mafia boss. She had just been offered protection by someone who probably ordered violence as casually as other people ordered coffee. But she had also just been respected for her principles by someone powerful enough to ignore principles entirely, and that scared her almost as much as the threats she might be facing. The next few days passed in a strange new normal. Naomi noticed things she would not have noticed before. A black sedan that seemed to be parked across from the pharmacy every day during her shift. A man in a leather jacket who sat at the coffee shop next door, always with a clear view of the pharmacy entrance. Someone who happened to be walking down her street in Brooklyn each night when she arrived home. She should have been terrified. She should have called the police. But instead, she felt an odd sense of security, like someone was watching over her, keeping her safe from threats she could not see. The fraudulent prescriptions continued. Different people, different alleged doctors, but always the same pattern. High-dose opioids, cash payment, urgent need, reluctance to provide identification. Naomi refused them all, documented everything, and reported each attempt to the DEA as required by law. Marcus watched her with a mixture of admiration and concern. "You know they are going to escalate eventually," he said one afternoon. "These people do not just give up because one pharmacist says no." "Then I will keep saying no," Naomi replied. "That is my job. That is the law." What she did not say was that she felt protected now. That knowing Dante Moretti was somehow watching over her made her more confident in her refusals. That the presence of his security made her brave enough to maintain her ethical standards. The escalation Marcus predicted came on a Thursday evening, 2 weeks after Dante's appearance in the parking lot. Naomi was working alone for the last hour of her shift, Marcus having left at 9 to attend his daughter's school play. The pharmacy was quiet, just a few late customers picking up prescriptions for the next morning. When the three men walked in at 9:45, Naomi immediately recognized two of them from previous fraudulent prescription attempts. The third was new, older, with hard eyes and a scar across his left cheek that suggested a violent history. "We have some prescriptions to fill," the scarred man said, sliding several papers across the counter. "And this time, you are going to fill them." Naomi picked up the prescriptions, not surprised to see they were all for high-dose narcotics. "I will need to verify these with the prescribing physicians," she said calmly, though her heart was racing. "No," the scarred man said. "No verification. No questions. You are going to fill these prescriptions right now. Cash payment. And you are going to do this every week going forward." "I cannot do that," Naomi said. "These prescriptions raise multiple red flags for fraud. I am legally required to report them." The scarred man leaned across the counter, close enough that Naomi could smell cigarettes and something sharper on his breath. "I do not think you understand the situation you are in. You have been causing problems for a very profitable business, problems that need to stop. Tonight." "I understand perfectly," Naomi said, her hand moving subtly toward the panic button under the counter. "I am a pharmacist. My responsibility is to patient safety and federal law. I will not participate in pharmaceutical fraud." "Then you are going to have a very short career," the scarred man said, "and possibly a very short life." Before Naomi could press the panic button, the pharmacy door opened and Dante Moretti walked in. He moved with casual confidence, like he was simply another customer, but the three men at the counter recognized him immediately. The scarred man paled, his aggressive posture collapsing into something closer to panic. "Mr. Moretti, he started. "Leave," Dante said quietly. The single word carried enough authority to make all three men move immediately toward the door. But Dante held up a hand, stopping them. "Wait," he said. "First, apologize to Miss Williams for threatening her." The The scarred man looked back at Naomi, his expression a mix of fear and resentment. "I apologize," he mumbled. "More sincerely," Dante said, "and explain to her that her pharmacy will no longer be targeted for fraudulent prescriptions." "I apologize," the scarred man said more clearly. "We will not bother you or your pharmacy again." "Good," Dante said. "Now leave. And tell your employer that using my family name without permission has consequences. Consequences he will be experiencing very soon." The three men practically ran out of the pharmacy. Dante watched them go, then turned to Naomi. "Are you all right?" Naomi realized she was shaking. She gripped the counter to steady herself. "I am fine. Thank you for—" She paused, unsure how to thank someone for whatever had just happened. "Doing what I said I would do," Dante finished. "Protecting you until the situation was resolved." "Is it resolved?" Naomi asked. "Not completely," Dante admitted. "But after tonight, you will not be targeted anymore. The people running this operation now understand that coming after you means coming after me, and that is a fight they cannot win." Naomi should have been relieved. She should have thanked him and let him leave. But instead, she found herself asking, "Why are you really doing this?" Dante studied her face for a long moment. "Because when I watched you refuse that first prescription, when I saw you stand your ground against intimidation and threat, I saw something I do not see very often. Real integrity. The kind of integrity that does not bend or break regardless of pressure. And I thought that kind of person deserves to be protected." "That cannot be the only reason," Naomi said. "It is not," Dante admitted. "I also admire you. Your strength, your principles, your commitment to doing right even when it costs you safety and comfort. Those qualities are rare in my world. Perhaps in any world. I am just a pharmacist doing my job," Naomi said. "You are a woman who chooses righteousness over security," Dante said. "That makes you exceptional." The air between them felt charged, heavy with attraction and possibility, and a dozen complications Naomi could not even name. This man was a criminal. This man was dangerous. This man represented everything she should avoid. But this man also saw her in a way no one else ever had. As someone worthy of protection and respect. As someone whose principles mattered. "I should go," Dante said, though he made no move to leave. "Your shift is ending. You should get home safely." "Will your security still be following me?" Naomi asked. "If you want them to be," Dante said. "The threat is diminished but not eliminated. I would prefer to ensure your continued safety." Naomi considered. She should refuse. She should establish boundaries. She should not accept continued protection from a mafia boss, but she also valued her safety, and she was honest enough to admit she enjoyed knowing Dante was watching over her. "I would appreciate that," she said carefully. "At least until you are certain the threat is completely gone." "It will be done," Dante said. He turned to leave, then paused at the door. "Miss Williams, if you ever need anything at all beyond security, I hope you will call the number I gave you." "Why would I need anything from you?" Naomi asked. "I do not know," Dante said. "But I hope you will call anyway." Then he was gone, leaving Naomi alone in the pharmacy with a racing heart and a mind full of questions she should not be asking. Over the following weeks, Naomi saw Dante several more times. Sometimes he appeared at the pharmacy near closing time, ostensibly to check on her safety but staying to talk about medicine, ethics, philosophy. Sometimes she caught glimpses of him in her Brooklyn neighborhood, sitting at a cafe across from her apartment building, reading a newspaper in Italian while drinking espresso. They never discussed his business. They never talked about his criminal activities. They simply talked about books, art, medicine, family, duty, responsibility, the weight of choices that affected other people's lives. Naomi learned that Dante had taken over his family organization at 26 after his father was killed in a territorial dispute. That he had spent 15 years consolidating power, eliminating rivals, building legitimate businesses alongside illegal ones. That he carried the weight of hundreds of people's livelihoods on his shoulders every day. And Dante learned that Naomi had put herself through pharmacy school working 3 jobs. That she volunteered at community clinics because she believed healthcare was a human right. That she came from a family of activists and educators who taught her that principles mattered more than comfort. They should not have connected. They came from completely different worlds, held completely different values, but somehow, in those conversations, they found common ground. A shared belief that power came with responsibility, that protecting people mattered, that doing right sometimes required doing things that were technically wrong. The turning point came on a cold November evening 6 weeks after their first meeting. Naomi was leaving the pharmacy after a particularly exhausting shift when she found Dante waiting by her car. "I would like to take you to dinner," he said without preamble. Naomi's first instinct was to refuse. Dating a mafia boss seemed like the worst possible decision she could make. But she also could not deny the attraction that had been building between them since that first night. The way her heart raced when she saw him, the way his presence made her feel both safe and dangerously alive. "That is probably not a good idea," she said. "Probably not," Dante agreed. "But I am asking anyway." "Why?" Naomi asked. "What could you possibly want with someone like me? I am completely outside your world. I represent everything you are supposed to avoid. You represent everything I wish my world valued more," Dante said simply. "Integrity, compassion, courage that has nothing to do with violence. You make me want to be better than I am." "You are a criminal," Naomi said bluntly. "You hurt people. You break laws. Everything about what you do goes against everything I believe." "Yes," Dante acknowledged. "I am not going to lie to you about what I am, or what I do. My world is violent. My choices are often morally complicated. I have done things that would horrify you. But I also protect hundreds of people. I provide for families. I keep communities safe from threats the police cannot or will not address. And I try, within the limitations of my world, to do more good than harm." "That is not how morality works," Naomi said. "Is it not?" Dante challenged. "You work in a neighborhood where pharmaceutical companies charge desperate people thousands of dollars for insulin they need to survive, where insurance companies deny coverage for life-saving treatments, where the legal system fails to protect vulnerable people from exploitation. Your world is not as clean as you think it is. That does not make your world right," Naomi countered. "No," Dante agreed. "But it makes it more complicated than right and wrong. It makes it about choosing between bad options and trying to create the least harm while protecting the most people." Naomi wanted to argue. She wanted to maintain her moral certainty, but she had seen too much in her years as a pharmacist to deny the truth in what Dante was saying. The healthcare system was broken. The legal system was broken. Sometimes the people who technically followed the law did more harm than the people who broke it. "One dinner," Dante said. "No pressure. No expectations. Just two people sharing a meal and a conversation. If at the end of it you never want to see me again, I will respect that. But give me a chance to show you that I am more than just the worst things I have done." Naomi knew she should say no. Every logical part of her brain screamed at her to refuse, but her heart, that traitorous organ, wanted to say yes, wanted to explore whatever this connection was between them. "One dinner," she agreed, "but not somewhere public, not somewhere your associates or mine would see us." Dante smiled. "I know a place." 2 hours later, Naomi found herself in a private dining room at a small Italian restaurant in Brooklyn. The owner, an elderly woman named Rosa, greeted Dante with the warmth of long familiarity and Naomi with respectful welcome. "Rosa has known my family for 40 years, Dante explained as they settled at a table set for two. "She knew my grandparents when they first came from Sicily. This restaurant is a safe place. Private, discreet, but still authentic. The food was extraordinary. Real Italian cuisine, nothing like the American adaptations Naomi was used to." Rosa brought plate after plate, explaining each dish in heavily accented English, telling stories about Dante's grandmother and the recipes she had brought from the old country. As they ate, they talked, not about crime or pharmacy or the dangers they represented to each other, but about real things. Families, dreams, fears, the strange weight of responsibilities neither of them had chosen, but both took seriously. "My father wanted me to be a doctor," Naomi admitted. "He thought pharmacy was settling. Not ambitious enough, but I liked being a pharmacist. Liked the direct patient care, the ability to catch medication errors, the counseling opportunities. I liked being someone people could trust with their health. My father wanted me to be legitimate," Dante said. "Run only legal businesses, leave the organization, move away, start fresh. But when he was killed, someone had to take over. Someone had to protect the families that depended on us. So I stepped into a role I never wanted and tried to do it with honor." "Do you regret it?" Naomi asked. "Taking over the family business?" "Every day," Dante said honestly. "And never. I regret the violence, I regret the moral compromises. I regret not being able to build a life that my father would approve of. But I do not regret protecting people. I do not regret the good I have been able to do within the limitations of my world. Can you ever leave? Naomi asked. Can you ever just walk away? Not completely, Dante said. Too many people depend on the organization. Too many enemies would see an exit as weakness to exploit. But I can delegate more. I can transition toward more legitimate businesses. I can change what the Moretti family is known for. If I had reason enough. What kind of reason? Naomi asked, though she suspected she knew the answer. Someone worth changing for, Dante said, his dark eyes fixed on hers. Someone who makes me want to be better than I am. The intensity of his gaze made Naomi's breath catch. She should be scared. She should be running. But instead, she found herself leaning forward, drawn to this man who represented everything she should avoid but somehow felt like everything she needed. I cannot be involved with a criminal, Naomi said softly. My professional ethics, my license, everything I have built would be at risk. I know, Dante said, and I would never ask you to compromise your principles, but I can change what kind of criminal I am. I can build something different. If you are willing to be patient while I do it. How long would that take? Naomi asked. Years, probably, Dante admitted. Untangling from illegal enterprises, building legitimate alternatives, establishing new leadership structures. But I would do it. For you. If you asked me to, I should not ask you to, Naomi said. I should not even be considering this. But you are considering it, Dante said. Just like I am. Because whatever this connection is between us, it is real, and it is worth exploring, even if it is complicated. Naomi thought about that first night in the parking lot, about the weeks of watching him from a distance, about the conversations that made her question everything she thought she knew about morality and justice, about the way he made her feel seen in a way no one else ever had. This is crazy, she said. Absolutely, Dante agreed. This will never work, Naomi said. Probably not, Dante acknowledged. But I want to try anyway, Naomi admitted. So do I, Dante said. When he reached across the table and took her hand, Naomi felt like she was making the most dangerous and most right decision of her entire life. The relationship developed slowly. They were both too cautious, too aware of the risks to rush into anything. But the connection was undeniable. Dante courted her with old-world formality that seemed completely at odds with his reputation. The first flowers arrived on a Monday morning, not at the pharmacy where her colleagues would see and question, but at her apartment building, delivered with perfect timing so they would be waiting when she left for work. Deep red roses, the kind that cost a fortune, with a card that simply read, "For your courage." Naomi carried them back upstairs to her apartment, telling herself she should refuse them, send them back, establish boundaries. But instead, she found herself arranging them in a vase on her kitchen table, touching the velvet petals and wondering what she was getting herself into. The next week, a book arrived, first edition of Toni Morrison's Beloved, signed by the author. They had discussed Morrison during one of their late-night conversations, Naomi mentioning how the book had changed her understanding of inherited trauma and resilience. The fact that Dante had remembered that he had tracked down this specific edition suggested a level of attention she had never experienced before. The gifts continued, never excessive, never inappropriate, always thoughtful in ways that showed he actually listened to their conversations. A vintage pharmacy scale from the 1930s when she mentioned her interest in the history of pharmaceutical practice. Tickets to a gallery opening for an artist whose work she admired. A donation made in her name to the community clinic where she volunteered. And always, he showed up. Not intrusively, but consistently. Appearing at the pharmacy near closing time to ensure she got to her car safely. Meeting her for coffee on her lunch breaks at a small cafe where they could talk without being observed. Walking with her through Brooklyn on weekend afternoons, discussing everything from Italian poetry to healthcare policy to the ethics of power. He never pushed, never pressured her to accept him or his world. He simply existed in her orbit, proving through patient consistency that he was serious about changing who he was for the possibility of being with her. And Naomi, despite all her reservations, despite all the logical reasons to keep her distance, found herself falling for him. Not just for his power or his protection, though both were undeniably attractive, but for the man underneath the reputation. The man who read Dante Alighieri in the original Italian, who had memorized the names of all her regular pharmacy patients and asked about their health with genuine concern, who talked about moral philosophy like it mattered more than money or territory. Marcus noticed the change in her. "You are glowing lately," he observed one afternoon as they processed prescriptions together. "Something different about you. Happy, also terrified. It is an interesting combination." "I might be making a terrible mistake," Naomi admitted. Marcus had known her long enough to understand. "The Mafia boss? You are still seeing him?" "Not seeing exactly," Naomi said. "More like allowing him to court me in the most formal, old-fashioned way possible." "He has not even kissed me yet, Marcus. He treats me like I am something precious and fragile." "Maybe to him you are," Marcus said. "You represent everything his world is not supposed to value. Integrity, education, ethics. Maybe you are precious to him precisely because you are different from everything he knows. Or maybe this is how dangerous men seduce people who should know better," Naomi countered. "Make them feel special and valued until they compromise everything they believe in." "Has he asked you to compromise anything?" Marcus asked pointedly. "Has he asked you to fill a fraudulent prescription? To look the other way on something illegal? To change who you are in any way?" "No," Naomi admitted. "If anything, he seems to value who I am exactly as I am." "Then maybe trust that," Marcus suggested. "Maybe trust that someone who has lived violently might actually recognize something beautiful when he sees it, and might want to protect it instead of corrupt it." "But how do I know?" Naomi asked. "How do I know this is real and not just fascination that will fade? How do I know I am not just romanticizing someone dangerous?" "You do not know," Marcus said honestly. "But you also do not know that it is not real until you give it a chance. Life is risk, Naomi. Love is risk. Maybe this particular risk is higher stakes than usual, but maybe the reward is proportionally higher too." Naomi thought about that conversation later that evening as she walked to her car. Dante was waiting, as he had been every night for weeks now, leaning against the black sedan that had become familiar, reading something on his phone but immediately looking up when she approached. "Good evening, Miss Williams," he said with that formal courtesy that made her heart skip. "Was your shift tolerable?" "Long," Naomi said. "Flu season is hitting hard. Lots of sick kids, worried parents, insurance complications." "You care deeply about your patients," Dante observed. "It shows in the way you talk about them. They trust me with their health," Naomi said. "That trust matters. It is the foundation of everything I do." "Trust is rare," Dante said quietly. "Precious, worth protecting." They stood in the parking lot, the October night cold around them, neither quite ready to say goodnight and go their separate ways. "Dante," Naomi said impulsively, "why are you really doing this? This patient courtship, this careful respect. Why not just be direct about what you want?" "Because what I want requires patience," Dante said. "I want you to choose me freely, without pressure, without feeling obligated because I protected you. I want you to know exactly who I am and what I am capable of, and still decide I am worth the risk. That cannot be rushed. That requires time and trust and proof that I am serious about changing for you." "What if I am never comfortable with your world?" Naomi asked. "What if I can never accept the violence and moral compromise?" "Then I will keep changing my world until it becomes something you can accept," Dante said simply. "Or I will walk away if that is what you need. But I will not pressure you. I will not manipulate you. I will simply keep showing up and let you decide in your own time whether this is something you want." "You make it sound so simple," Naomi said. "It is simple," Dante replied. "Complicated to execute, perhaps, but simple in its essence. I care for you. I respect you. I want to build something with you. Those are simple truths. Everything else is just logistics." "And if the logistics are impossible?" Naomi asked. "If there is no way to bridge the gap between your world and mine, then we will create a new world," Dante said. "Something that honors both of us. Something that neither of us could have imagined alone but that we can build together." The way he looked at her when he said it, the certainty in his voice, made Naomi believe it might actually be possible. "Take me somewhere," she said suddenly. "Not Rosa's restaurant. Somewhere that matters to you. Somewhere you go when you want to remember who you are." Dante studied her face, seeming to understand the significance of what she was asking. She was inviting herself into his life, into his world, asking to see him in his own context. "Are you certain?" he asked. "Because once you see more of my world, it becomes harder to maintain distance, harder to pretend we can keep this casual and safe. I am certain, Naomi said. I need to see all of you. Not just the parts you show me in parking lots and coffee shops. The real you. Dante nodded slowly. Tomorrow is Saturday. If you are free in the evening, I will show you something important. The next evening, Dante picked her up in a different car. Not the sedan with the driver, but a classic Alfa Romeo, sleek and beautiful, that he drove himself. He wore casual clothes, dark jeans, and a leather jacket that made him look younger, more relaxed, more human. Where are we going? Naomi asked as he navigated through Brooklyn toward an industrial area near the waterfront. A place that has been in my family for 3 generations, Dante said. The place where I learned what it meant to be a Moretti. They stopped in front of what looked like an abandoned warehouse. But when Dante unlocked the heavy doors and led her inside, Naomi found herself in a completely unexpected space. A boxing gym. Old school, with heavy bags hanging from chains, a regulation ring in the center, speed bags along one wall, the smell of leather and sweat, and decades of hard work. My grandfather opened this gym in 1956, Dante explained as they walked through the space. He was a boxer when he first came from Sicily, used his fists to earn respect and money in a country that did not want Italian immigrants. This gym was where neighborhood boys came to learn discipline, to burn off anger, to channel violence into something structured and controlled. The walls were covered with photos. Boxers in various decades, some professional, most amateur. Dante pointed to one showing a young man with familiar features. My father, at 19. He trained here every day until he took over the family business. Said this place kept him grounded, reminded him that power had to be disciplined or it became destructive. And you? Naomi asked. Do you train here? Every morning at 5, Dante, I said. Have, for 20 years. It is the one place where I am just a man working out, not the boss everyone defers to. The heavy bag does not care about my reputation. It just requires technique and endurance. Why did you bring me here? Naomi asked. Because you asked to see the real me, Dante said. And this is it. Not the suits and the business meetings and the power plays, but this, discipline, structure, channeling violence into something controlled and purposeful. This gym saved my father from becoming someone purely destructive. It saves me from the same fate every day. Naomi walked around the ring, touching the worn ropes, studying the photos on the walls. She saw Dante at different ages. As a teenager, skinny and intense. As a young man, filling out with muscle and confidence. More recent photos showed him training others, teaching young men the same discipline his grandfather and father had taught him. You are not just what everyone says you are, Naomi said softly. You are not just a criminal or a mafia boss or a dangerous man. You are someone trying to channel violence into something less destructive. Someone trying to honor family traditions while building something better. I am both, Dante said honestly. I am the dangerous man everyone fears, and I am the man who trains here every morning hoping to be better than my worst impulses. I wanted you to see both sides, to understand that I am not simply good or bad. I am complicated. And if you choose me, you are choosing all of that complexity. Naomi turned to face him fully. Show me, she said. Show me how you train. Show me what you do here every morning. Dante looked surprised but pleased. He moved to one of the heavy bags, taking off his jacket and pulling on training gloves that hung nearby. Then he began working the bag with practiced precision. Not wild violence, but controlled, channeling aggression into structured combinations. Jab, cross, hook, uppercut, the rhythm hypnotic, the power obvious, but disciplined. Naomi watched, fascinated by this raw display of controlled violence. This was who Dante really was. Powerful, dangerous, but channeling all of it through discipline and structure. Not mindlessly destructive, but purposefully controlled. When he finished and pulled off the gloves, breathing hard but controlled, Naomi stepped close to him. Teach me, she said. What? Dante looked genuinely surprised. Teach me, Naomi repeated. If I am going to be part of your world, I want to understand this. How you control power, how you channel violence, how you maintain discipline. Dante studied her face, seeming to understand she was asking for more than boxing lessons. She was asking him to let her into his world fully, to share the tools he used to remain human despite the violence his life required. All right, he said. We start with stance. For the next hour, Dante taught Naomi the basics of boxing: how to stand, how to hold her hands, how to throw a jab without hurting her own wrist. He was patient, correcting her form gently, positioning her body with careful touches that felt more intimate than aggressive. When she finally landed a solid hit on the light bag, making it swing with real force, she felt a rush of exhilaration. "Good," Dante said, pride evident in his voice. "You have natural power. You just needed to learn how to channel it." "Is that what you do?" Naomi asked, breathing hard from the exertion. "Channel power instead of letting it control you?" "Every day," Dante said. "It is the only way to survive in my world without becoming a monster." They sat together on the edge of the boxing ring, sharing water and comfortable silence. The industrial space felt sacred somehow, a place of transformation and discipline. "Thank you for showing me this," Naomi said. "For letting me see who you really are." "Thank you for wanting to see it," Dante replied. "Most people only want to see the power or fear the danger. You want to understand the man underneath. That is rare. That is precious." When he drove her home that night, Naomi felt like something had shifted between them. They had moved past polite courtship into real intimacy. She had seen him in his most authentic space, and instead of being terrified, she was more attracted to him than ever. "I would like to see you again," she said, as they sat in the car outside her apartment. "Not just in parking lots or coffee shops. Really see you. Spend time together. See where this goes." Dante smiled. "Tomorrow I am cooking dinner for my mother at her house in Queens. She has been asking to meet you. Would you like to come?" "Meeting the mother," Naomi said. "That is a significant step." "It is," Dante agreed. "But I want her to meet you. I want you to see that part of my life too. The family dinners, the normal moments, the proof that I am more than just the reputation. I would love to meet your mother," Naomi said. "Good," Dante said. "I should warn you, though. Maria Moretti is formidable. She will ask you intrusive questions about your intentions toward her son. She will feed you until you cannot breathe, and she will decide within the first 5 minutes whether she approves of you or not." "What if she does not approve?" Naomi asked. "Then I will respect her opinion and take it into consideration," Dante said. "But I will not let it change how I feel about you. My mother taught me to think for myself. She does not get to tell me who to love now." The word love hung in the air between them. Neither of them had used it before. It was too soon, too dangerous, too real. "I will see you tomorrow," Naomi said, opening the car door before the moment could become more than she was ready for. "Tomorrow," Dante agreed. "Wear something comfortable. My mother's house is about family, not formality." As Naomi climbed the stairs to her apartment, she thought about the evening, about seeing Dante in his boxing gym, raw and powerful and disciplined, about the way he had taught her with patience and respect, about meeting his mother tomorrow and stepping even further into his world. She was falling for him. She had been fighting it for weeks, telling herself it was just fascination or attraction to danger, but tonight had made it undeniable. She was falling in love with Dante Moretti, with the dangerous man who read poetry and trained every morning and honored his family traditions, with the complicated, disciplined, surprisingly gentle man who had changed the direction of his entire life because she had refused to fill one prescription. Sunday afternoon, Dante picked Naomi up at 2:00. He looked different than she had ever seen him, still polished, but softer somehow. Dark slacks and a cashmere sweater instead of the formal suits. His hair slightly less perfectly styled, more son than Mafia boss. "My mother lives in Howard Beach," Dante explained as they drove through Queens. "The house where I grew up. She refuses to move even though I have offered her a penthouse in Manhattan multiple times. Says she likes knowing her neighbors, likes being part of a community instead of isolating in luxury." "She sounds wise," Naomi said. "She is terrifying," Dante said with genuine affection. "But yes, also wise. She kept my father grounded for 40 years, kept him connected to the community, to the reasons he did what he did. After he died, she considered leaving, starting fresh somewhere without memories, but she decided the memories were worth staying for." The house was a neat brick 2-story in a neighborhood that had clearly been Italian for generations. The small front yard was immaculately maintained. Flower boxes in the windows despite the October cold. A statue of Mary in a corner garden shrine that looked like it had been there for decades. Before they could knock, the door swung open. Maria Moretti was in her early 70s. Naomi guessed. Petite, barely 5 feet tall, with silver hair pulled back in an elegant bun. She wore black pants and a purple silk blouse, minimal jewelry, but carried herself with undeniable presence. Her dark eyes, so like Dante's, assessed Naomi with instant, comprehensive evaluation. "Mama, this is Naomi Williams," Dante said. "Naomi, my mother, Maria Moretti." "Miss Williams," Maria said, her accent strong but her English perfect. "Welcome to my home. Please, come in. Dante tells me you are the woman who makes him want to be better. That is a significant responsibility." "She is not responsible for making me better," Dante corrected gently. "She simply inspires me to want to be." "Same thing," Maria said dismissively. Come. I have made osso buco, Dante's favorite. If you are going to be part of his life, you should know what foods matter to him." The house smelled incredible. Rich meat braising, fresh bread, herbs and wine combining into something that made Naomi's mouth water immediately. The interior was exactly what she had expected. Comfortable furniture that had been there for decades. Photos, covering every surface. A large crucifix on one wall. Lace doilies on the side tables. Maria led them to the kitchen, a large warm space that was clearly the heart of the home. She immediately put Naomi to work, helping prepare side dishes while interrogating her with questions that were simultaneously intrusive and somehow not offensive. "So, you are a pharmacist. That requires brains, discipline. Good. My Dante needs a woman with brains. Too many women want him only for his money or his power. That is empty. You want him for himself?" "I do not want to want him at all," Naomi admitted honestly. "He represents everything I should avoid. But yes, when I am with him, I want him for himself. Not what he has or what he does, but who he is underneath all of it." Maria nodded approvingly. "Good answer. Honest. My son needs honesty. He is surrounded by people who tell him what he wants to hear. You tell him truth. That is love." "Is it?" Naomi asked. Maria looked at her shrewdly. "You are black, yes? Not Italian." "I am black," Naomi confirmed, unsure where this was going. Maria waved a hand. Dante's father was traditional about many things, but not about love. He always said love does not care about tradition or ethnicity or expectations. Love only cares about connection. If you and Dante connect, truly connect, then everything else is just details. "And if we do not connect?" Naomi asked. "If this is just fascination that fades? Then you will both hurt, but you will survive," Maria said pragmatically. "But I do not think that is what this is. I see how my son looks at you. I see how he has changed since meeting you. That is not fascination. That is transformation." Over dinner, which was extraordinary, Maria told stories about Dante as a child, how he had been serious even then, how he had taken care of his younger siblings after their father died, how he had struggled with the violence his position required but had found ways to channel it toward protection instead of pure destruction. "He trains every morning at his grandfather's gym," Maria said. "Did he show you that place?" Naomi nodded. "He did. He taught me to throw a punch." Maria's eyes widened in genuine surprise. "He taught you boxing?" She looked at Dante with something that might have been shock or approval, or both. "Dante, you have never taught boxing to anyone outside the family." Naomi wanted to understand that part of me, Dante said simply. "I wanted her to see how I maintain control, how I channel violence into discipline." "This is serious," Maria said, looking between them. "More serious than I realized." "Dante, are you certain? This woman has a life, a career, a reputation. You cannot protect her completely from what being with you means." "I know," Dante said. "And if Naomi decides the cost is too high, I will respect that decision and release her from any obligation to me. But I am changing, Mama. Building more legitimate businesses. Stepping back from the violent parts of the organization. I am. Trying to become someone she can choose without compromising everything she is." "That is good," Maria said. "That is what your father wanted for you. To build something legitimate. To use power for protection instead of exploitation. This woman makes you want those things. That means she is good for you." After dinner, Maria pulled Naomi aside while Dante cleared the table. They stood together in the living room, surrounded by photos of Dante at various ages. School pictures, training photos, formal portraits. "My son loves you," Maria said quietly. "He has not said it yet because he is afraid of pressuring you. But I am his mother. I know. And I am telling you this because you deserve to know what you are deciding about. We have only known each other for a few months, Naomi protested. Time is not what makes love real, Maria said. Connection is what makes love real. And you two connect in ways that transcend time. I see it. Everyone who knows Dante sees it. The question is whether you are brave enough to accept it. I am terrified, Naomi admitted. Of him. Of what choosing him means. Of compromising my ethics. Of the danger. All of it. Good, Maria said firmly. You should be terrified. Love is always terrifying. It requires vulnerability and trust and faith that someone will keep you safe while you give them power to hurt you. But with my son, you will be safe. He would burn the world before he let harm come to you. How do you know? Naomi asked. Because I raised him, Maria said. I taught him that power is responsibility, that strength is for protection, that real men do not dominate women, they partner with them. And because I see how he looks at you, like you are the miracle he did not think he deserved. Men do not look at women that way unless they plan to spend their lives earning that miracle. When Dante drove Naomi home that evening, she was quiet, processing everything Maria had said. Everything she had seen in that warm family home where a crime family was. Just a family. My mother overwhelmed you, Dante said. I should have warned you better. She is intense. She was wonderful, Naomi said truthfully. She loves you so much. And she made me see you differently. Not just as the powerful man everyone fears, but as the son she raised. The person behind the reputation. Is that good or bad? Dante asked. It is terrifying, Naomi admitted, because it makes you more real, more human, harder to keep at a safe distance. Do you want to keep me at a safe distance? Dante asked quietly. No, Naomi said. Not anymore. I think I want to take the risk. Let you in completely. See where this goes without holding back. Dante pulled the car over to the side of the road. They were in a quiet Brooklyn neighborhood, streetlights casting gentle shadows. He turned to face her fully. Naomi, if you let me in, I will not take that lightly, he said. I will commit to you completely. I will build the legitimate life I promised. I will be someone you can choose, without compromising your ethics. But I need to know you are certain, that you are choosing this freely, not because you feel obligated or because I have pressured you. I am certain, Naomi said, terrified, but certain. I am choosing you, Dante. All of you. The danger and the complexity and the moral ambiguity. I am choosing us, whatever that becomes. When Dante kissed her this time, it was different than before. Not polite or respectful or patient, but consuming. Like he had been holding back for months and could finally let himself feel everything he had been carefully controlling. Naomi kissed him back with equal passion, months of suppressed attraction and growing love, finally finding expression. She felt safe and dangerously alive at the same time, protected and challenged, cherished and claimed. Come home with me, Dante said against her lips. Stay with me tonight. Let me show you how thoroughly I intend to love you. Yes, Naomi whispered. Take me home. Dante's penthouse was in a building he owned in Manhattan. The top 3 floors. Absurdly luxurious but somehow still welcoming. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Expensive but comfortable furniture. Art on the walls that suggested actual taste rather than just wealth. And everywhere, books. Italian literature, philosophy, history, poetry. Shelves full of evidence that this man actually read and thought and engaged with ideas. This is beautiful, Naomi said, walking through the space. It is empty, Dante corrected. Beautiful, yes, but empty without people who matter in it. Without life and warmth and connection. He poured them wine, and they stood together at the windows, looking out at the glittering city below. The lights stretched to the horizon in every direction. A city that Dante had significant power over. A city that feared and respected him in equal measure. Do you ever wish you were someone else? Naomi asked. Someone normal who could live a simpler life? Every day, Dante admitted. And never. I wish the violence was not necessary. I wish the moral compromises were not required. But I do not wish to be powerless. To be unable to protect people who need protection. The power is both burden and gift. I carry it with as much honor as I can manage. You are a complicated man, Naomi said. I am. Dante agreed. Is that something you can accept? The complications? I think the complications are what makes you interesting, Naomi said. If you were simple, if you were easy to understand and categorize, I do not think I would be as drawn to you. The complexity is part of the attraction. Dante set down his wine glass and turned to face her fully. Naomi, I need to tell you something. I have been trying to find the right time, the right words, but there is no perfect moment. So I am simply going to say it. Naomi's heart raced. Part anticipation, part fear. I love you, Dante said. I have loved you since that first night when I watched you refuse to fill a fraudulent prescription despite intimidation and threat. When I saw you stand your ground on principle, even though it put you in danger. That kind of integrity, that kind of courage, made me realize I wanted to be someone worthy of standing beside you. And every day since then has only deepened what I feel. You make me want to be better. You make me believe I can be better. You are the miracle I did not know I was looking for. Tears filled Naomi's eyes. She had known, of course, had felt the love between them growing. But hearing it spoken aloud, hearing this powerful, dangerous man admit vulnerability and devotion, made it real in a way that terrified and thrilled her. I love you too, she said. I fought it. I tried to convince myself it was just fascination or attraction to danger. But it is not. It is love. Real, complicated, terrifying love. You see me in ways no one else ever has. You respect my principles, while challenging me to think differently. You make me feel safe and dangerously alive at the same time. I love you, Dante. Despite all the logical reasons I should not. Despite all the complications, I love you. When he kissed her this time, it was with all the pent-up emotion they had been carefully controlling for months. Naomi gave herself to it completely, trusting him with every vulnerable part of herself. He lifted her easily, carrying her through the penthouse to his bedroom, laid her gently on a bed that was ridiculously large and comfortable. Then he simply looked at her for a long moment. You are certain? He asked. Because once we do this, there is no going back to casual or uncertain. This makes us real. This makes us committed. I am certain, Naomi said. I want to be yours. I want you to be mine. I want all of this. All of us. All of the complications and dangers and beautiful moments. I choose you, Dante. Completely. The lovemaking was passionate but tender. Dante touched her like she was precious. Like her pleasure mattered as much as his own. He took his time, learning what she liked, paying attention to every sound and movement. And when they finally came together, it felt like something sacred. Not just physical connection, but spiritual union. Two people choosing each other despite impossible odds. Afterward, they lay tangled together in his bed, their breathing slowly returning to normal. The city glittered outside the windows. The world continued spinning. But in that moment, in that bed, they were safe and whole and completely together. I want to wake up like this every morning, Dante said, his hand tracing lazy patterns on her skin. With you in my arms, in my bed, in my life. That might be complicated, Naomi said. I have a job, an apartment, a life I have built. Then move in here, Dante said. Keep your apartment if you need the independence, but stay here most nights. Let me wake up next to you. Let me cook breakfast for you. Let me build a morning routine that includes you. You cook? Naomi asked, amused. My mother taught all her children to cook, Dante said with dignity. She said real men feed their families, not just provide money. I make excellent pasta carbonara. Then I want pasta carbonara for breakfast tomorrow, Naomi said. They stayed awake, talking for hours, sharing the kind of deep late-night conversations that reveal souls. Dante told her about the violence he regretted, the people he had hurt in building his power, the choices that still haunted him. And Naomi shared her own fears and failures, the patients she had not been able to help, the ethical dilemmas that had no right answers, the loneliness of being principled in a world that rewarded compromise. You are not alone anymore, Dante said as dawn began lighting the sky outside. Whatever challenges you face, whatever ethical dilemmas come up, you have someone to talk through them with. Someone who respects your principles, even when he does not fully share them. And you have someone who will not let you compromise yourself more than necessary, Naomi replied. Someone who will remind you of who you want to be when the violence tempts you toward who you have been. We make each other better, Dante said. That is rare. That is precious. That is worth protecting at all costs. Over the following months, they built a life together. Naomi kept her apartment in Brooklyn but stayed at Dante's penthouse most nights. She continued working at Riverside Pharmacy, maintaining her professional life, her independence, her principles. But she also became part of Dante's world, meeting his associates, understanding his businesses, seeing the complexity of the organization he led. She met the families he protected, the neighborhoods where his influence kept violence at manageable levels, the businesses that employed hundreds of people, the community programs funded by money that came from sources both legal and illegal. She saw that his power was not just destructive, that it created stability and opportunity even while requiring moral compromise. And Dante kept changing, transitioning the Moretti organization toward more legitimate businesses, construction, waste management, import-export companies that operated legally. He could not eliminate all the illegal activity immediately. Too many people depended on those income streams. Too many rival organizations would exploit any perceived weakness. But he was building toward something different, something his father would have approved of, something Naomi could be proud to be part of. They had their first major conflict 4 months into their relationship. A rival organization moved into Moretti territory, challenging Dante's control of several neighborhoods. The traditional response would have been immediate, violent retaliation. Demonstrate power, eliminate the threat, re-establish dominance through force. But Dante had promised Naomi he was building something different. So he hesitated. Tried negotiation first. Offered compromises that would have seemed weak to his associates and rivals alike. The rival organization mistook his restraint for weakness, escalated their encroachment. And when they attacked one of the legitimate businesses under Moretti protection, killing 2 employees who had families depending on them, Dante had to respond. Naomi did not learn about it until after. Did not know about the retaliation until it was over. But when Dante came to her apartment late one night, his knuckles bruised and his expression haunted, she knew immediately that something had happened. "I had to," he said before she could ask. "They killed people I am responsible for protecting. If I did not respond, more people would have died. More families would have been destroyed. I had to demonstrate that there are consequences for killing under my protection." "How bad was it?" Naomi asked. "Bad," Dante said simply. "Violent. The kind of thing I promised. You I was moving away from. But necessary. And I am not going to lie to you about that necessity." Naomi felt sick. This was the reality of loving Dante. He could be tender and thoughtful and genuinely trying to change. But he was also a man who commanded violence when he deemed it necessary. And he was asking her to accept both truths simultaneously. "Did you have other options?" she asked carefully. "None that would have protected more people," Dante said honestly. "I tried negotiation. I tried compromise. But sometimes, violence is the only language certain people understand. And if I do not speak it when necessary, people under my protection die. I will not apologize for preventing that." "I am not asking you to apologize," Naomi said. "I am asking you to help me understand, to help me see how you reconcile the gentle man I know with the violent man you have to be." They talked for hours, Dante explaining the calculus of violence, how he tried to minimize it, direct it, use it only when necessary, and in ways that would prevent more violence long term. It was not perfect. It was not clean. But it was the reality of the world he inhabited. And Naomi had to decide if she could live with that reality. If loving Dante meant accepting that he would sometimes do things that horrified her, that his hands would be stained with blood even as they touched her with tenderness. "I need time," she said finally, "not to decide if I love you. I know I do. But to figure out if I can live with all of what you are, all of what loving you requires." "I understand," Dante said. "Take the time you need. I will be here regardless of what you decide." He left her that night, and for 3 days, Naomi barely functioned. She went to work mechanically, filled prescriptions, counseled patients, maintained her professional standards, but her mind was elsewhere, wrestling with impossible moral questions. Marcus noticed, invited her to coffee after her shift, listened as she explained the situation, without naming specific names or details. "You are asking whether you can love someone who does bad things for good reasons," Marcus said finally. "Whether the ends justify the means. Whether choosing love requires compromising your principles." "Yes," Naomi said. "Exactly that. Here is what I think," Marcus said. "I think principles are important, essential even. But I also think rigid principles that cannot accommodate complexity often cause more harm than flexible ethics that recognize nuance." You are not compromising your principles by loving this man. You are recognizing that the world is complicated and that good people sometimes do questionable things in service of protecting others. But where does it end? Naomi asked. How much violence can I accept? How many moral compromises can I rationalize before I am complicit? That is something only you can answer, Marcus said. But I will say this. In the 8 years I have known you, you have never compromised your professional ethics, never filled a fraudulent prescription, never looked the other way when something was wrong. That integrity does not disappear just because you love someone complicated. If anything, it becomes more important. You become the conscience that helps him navigate impossible choices, and he becomes the strength that allows you to maintain your principles even when they are dangerous. That night, Naomi called Dante, asked him to come to her apartment. When he arrived, she could see the uncertainty in his eyes, the fear that she had decided to end things. I have thought about it, Naomi said, about what you are and what loving you means. And I have decided something important. Dante waited, his expression neutral but his body tense. I cannot change who you are or what you do, Naomi continued. I cannot make you stop being violent when violence is required to protect people. That would be asking you to compromise the very qualities that made me fall in love with you in the first place. Your commitment to protection. Your willingness to bear moral burdens so others do not have to. Your understanding that power is responsibility. So what are you saying? Dante asked carefully. I am saying I choose you, Naomi said. All of you. The gentle man who reads poetry, and the dangerous man who commands violence. The man trying to build something legitimate, and the man who still has to make impossible choices. I choose all of it, and I promise to be your conscience when you need guidance, to help you navigate the moral complexity, to remind you who you want to be, even while accepting who you sometimes have to be. The relief on Dante's face was profound. He crossed to her in 3 strides, gathering her into his arms. Naomi, he said against her hair. Naomi, thank you. Thank you for choosing all of me. Thank you for seeing the complications and loving me anyway. Just promise me something, Naomi said. Promise that you will always tell me the truth, even when it is ugly, even when you think I will not want to hear it. If I am going to be part of your world, I need honesty. I need to know what I am accepting. I promise, Dante said. Complete honesty. No matter how difficult. That conversation became the foundation of their relationship. Total honesty, even when it was uncomfortable. Dante told Naomi when he had to make violent choices. Naomi helped him think through alternatives and live with the decisions he made. They became true partners, not just in love, but in navigating the impossible moral terrain of his world. 6 months later, the Moretti family had completely exited pharmaceutical fraud, human trafficking, and several other illegal enterprises. They were transitioning toward legitimate businesses, construction, waste management, import-export. It was not perfect. There were still gray areas, still moral compromises, but it was progress. Dante had stepped back from day-to-day operations, delegating to trusted lieutenants while he focused on building the legitimate future he had promised Naomi. They lived separately, maintaining boundaries for her professional reputation, but everyone who knew them understood they were together. That the most powerful man in the city had changed the direction of his entire life for a pharmacist who refused to compromise her ethics. Naomi still worked at Riverside Pharmacy, still refused fraudulent prescriptions, still provided compassionate care to her community. But now she did it with the absolute confidence that she was protected, that Dante had made sure no one would ever threaten her for doing her job. One evening, as they walked through Brooklyn after dinner at Rose's restaurant, Dante said, I have something for you. He pulled a small box from his pocket. Inside was a ring, simple, elegant, a single diamond on a platinum band. I know we have only been together for 6 months, Dante said. I know your career and your reputation are complicated by your relationship with me. I know we have obstacles that would make most people give up, but I also know I want to spend my life with you. I want to build something legitimate and good, with you by my side. So, I am asking, will you marry me? Naomi looked at the ring, at this man who had changed his entire life for her, at the possibility of a future she had never imagined wanting. Yes, she said. Yes, I will marry you. I will choose you every day for the rest of our lives. When Dante slipped the ring onto her finger, Naomi thought about that first night in the pharmacy. about standing her ground against intimidation and threat, about refusing to compromise her principles even when it seemed dangerous. She had thought saying no to that prescription was the bravest thing she would ever do. But saying yes to Dante, to this complicated, dangerous love, required even more courage, required believing that people could change, that love could transform violence into protection, that sometimes the most dangerous man in your life was exactly the one you needed. 1 year later, Naomi Williams became Naomi Moretti in a small ceremony attended by close friends and family. Rosa catered the reception with dishes from Dante's grandmother's recipes. Marcus was there with his family, still slightly amazed that his colleague had married a former Mafia boss. And Dante's associates, the men and women who now ran the increasingly legitimate Moretti businesses, toasted the couple with genuine warmth. As they danced at their reception, Dante whispered, "Do you regret it? This life we are building?" "Never," Naomi said. "You make me braver than I ever knew I could be. You showed me that doing the right thing sometimes means choosing love over safety. And you proved that even the most dangerous man can change if he has reason enough." "You are my reason," Dante said. "You have been since the moment I watched you refuse that prescription, since the moment I saw someone who would not bend or break regardless of pressure. You are everything I never knew I needed. And you are everything I never knew I wanted," Naomi replied. "The most complicated, most dangerous, most perfect choice I ever made." That is the story of Naomi Williams, the pharmacist who refused a prescription and accidentally captured the heart of the most powerful man in New York. Her story proves that integrity attracts respect, that courage creates connection, and that sometimes the most dangerous choice is also the most rewarding. It reminds us that people can change, that love can transform, and that standing firm in your principles can lead to the most unexpected and beautiful destinations. If this incredible story moved you and you want to hear more tales of dangerous romance, unexpected protection, and love that conquers impossible odds, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell. We share new stories every week about real people who discovered that heroes come in unexpected forms and that sometimes the most meaningful relationships begin with the most dangerous moments. What did you think of Naomi and Dante's story? Have you ever stood your ground when it felt dangerous to do so? Would you have given Dante a chance? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We love hearing how these stories resonate with your own experiences of courage, principle, and unexpected love. Remember, sometimes saying no to the wrong thing opens the door to the right person, and sometimes the most dangerous man in your life is exactly the one who will keep you safest. Thanks for listening, and we will see you in the next story.